The Nigerian Civil War, aka the Biafran War, was fought from July 1967 until January of 1970 between the Nigerian government and the Independent Republic of Biafra. However, as the Biafran armed forces were heavily outnumbered, outgunned, and understrengthed, the Biafrans decided to hire foreign mercenaries to try to help close the gap in firepower with the Nigerians and for extra support. This is their story. Rolf Steiner was a former French Foreign Legionnaire who had previously fought in the First Indochina War, Suez Crisis, Algeria War, and would be discharged from the Legion after joining the OAS. Steiner was bored with civilian life and contacted Rolf Falz, who was recruiting mercenaries to go to Biafra in 1967. Like all of the foreign mercenaries, Steiner was commissioned as an officer in the Biafran military upon arrival. He would also later be made a lieutenant colonel and was given command of the 4th Biafran Commando Brigade, which will get its own video later on, which I will dive deeper into the brigade's exploits. Steiner was the leader of the mercenaries due to his seniority as a sergeant in the French Foreign Legion. In Biafra, Rolf Steiner's first project was to convert small riverboats into gunboats to create a brownwater navy for Biafra, which was successful in launching raids and obtaining much-needed ammunition and weapons, but it failed to break the blockade of Biafra, where Nigeria was starving the state into submission. He also led small units against the Nigerians, and in April of 1968, he was given the command of a battalion of 400 to 500 men. Following the Biafran success in Operation OAU, Steiner started to demand an offensive for the Biafrans to take Lagos, which was deemed insane by his superiors. However, Steiner stated that he was initially drawn to Biafra for the money and fighting, but changed his viewpoint to fight for Biafra due to the starvation and crimes against humanity committed by Nigeria upon the Biafrans. He was known for ranting in German and French, which nobody there understood, and he held his troops up to French Foreign Legionnaire standards, which weren't met, and he often promoted and demoted men on the spot out of pure merit, which kind of is a good thing. On November 15, 1968, Steiner ordered Operation Hiroshima with the aim of retaking Onitsha and stopping the Nigerian advance, which was very ill-conceived and was a failure. He became paranoid and was considered to have previously been a good mercenary, but the publicity had got to him and he became a drunk. This led to a brawl between Steiner and Biafran General Ojukwu, who saved his life from getting shot, and he later left the country. Afterwards, Steiner fought in the First Sudanese Civil War, and that was the last exploit in his mercenary career. Taffy Williams had previously fought for Katanga during the Congo crisis. Williams was known in Biafra for being bulletproof due to his ability to survive multiple wounds and was 5 times reported to have been killed in action between December of 1967 and October of 1968, only for him to turn up alive. He would often stand up and charge under fire, which would unnerve many superstitious Nigerian soldiers who started to believe that he was in fact bulletproof, and this would inspire his own Biafran soldiers in combat. Williams was assigned 100 Biafran fighters in early 1968 and managed to keep 2 battalions of Chadian mercenaries in the Nigerian Federal Army at bay for 12 weeks with only antiquated weapons. Williams had stated that many of his men deserved the Victoria Cross and would have been awarded it had the Biafrans been part of the military of Britain. Taffy Williams was given command of 1,000 men in the 4th Commando Brigade and carried out a counteroffensive on August 24, 1968 against 2 battalions of Nigerian soldiers with Soviet advisors who were attempting to cross the Imo River. They were forced to withdraw after running out of ammunition. Major Williams would then lead 4th Brigade after Lieutenant Colonel Steiner's expulsion from Biafra, and Williams would be the last mercenary to leave Biafra shortly before it collapsed. Jan Zumbach was a Polish-Swiss pilot who flew fighters during the Battle of France and Battle of Britain, as well as in other engagements during World War II. He was contracted in 1962 to organize the Air Force of Katanga during the Congo crisis. He then became a mercenary in Biafra in 1967, where he organized and commanded the Biafran Air Force, flying in a B-26. During this time, he also partook in Biafran Air Force raids, including the killing of a Nigerian Army Chief of Staff during the attack on Markudi airfield that he led. After the war, he died in 1986 under unclear circumstances, and an investigation into his death was closed by order of French authorities without any public explanation. So, chew on that for a little while. Lyn Garrison was previously a pilot in the Canadian Air Force and became a film producer and director, as well as a political advisor in Haiti in the 90s and early 2000s. But what we really care about is his activities as a mercenary in Biafra. Garrison flew supplies to Biafra and bombed the Nigerian forces while serving in the Biafran Air Force. One mission was where he flew an almost unserviceable B-26 and destroyed 3 MiGs. His food supply drops prevented thousands from dying of starvation within the country. Garrison flew with the BAF during Operation Tiger Claw and defended Calabar in October of 1967. Count Carl Gustav von Rosen was a Swedish mercenary and humanitarian pilot who had previously flown for the Red Cross in 1935 during the Italian invasion of Ethiopia and received severe mustard gas burns from the Italian Air Force. During World War II, von Rosen flew for the Finnish Air Force in the Winter War against the Soviets and was wounded in action. After the war, he flew for the UN during the Congo crisis and became a mercenary pilot to fly relief supplies to Biafra in 1968 and formed the aviation unit known as the Babies of Biafra. Their mission was to strike against the airfields that the Federal Nigerian Air Force launched attacks against the civilian population of Biafra. On May 22, 1969, and over the next few days, von Rosen and his 5 aircraft launched attacks against Nigerian airfields all throughout the country, and he later flew more famine relief supplies in Ethiopia during the Ogaden War and was killed by Somalis on July 13, 1977. Jack Malik was a Rhodesian pilot who joined the RAF in 1943, and in February of 1945 he was shot down behind enemy lines and wounded. He was kept safe from the Germans by local partisans who found hiding places for him throughout the mountains. Malik supported Moise Touchombe and Katanga during the Congo crisis and was shot down by the UN in 1963. He worked with Touchombe again in 1964 when he returned to the Congo, and he also flew to support Mike Hoare against rebels. He also flew resupply missions during the Mercenaries revolt in 1967. During the Nigerian Civil War, Malik made his first gun-running flights into Biafra and to supply rebels between 1967 and January of 1970. He and his company, ATA, were making nightly weapons flights to Biafra. In 1968, he and the crew of his DC-7 were jailed on landing in Togo with a cargo of 9 tons of banknotes. Afterwards, in January 1977, Malik flew French mercenary Bob Denard and a team of mercenaries to Benin in a failed coup attempt. He was also called up by the Rhodesian government to fight in the Bush War, dropping Rhodesian paratroopers and other SF units into Mozambique as part of Operation Dingo. Mark Gusen had previously been a Belgian army officer and advisor to the Congolese government during the Congo crisis. He also trained royalist forces during the North Yemen Civil War. He was committed to the Biafran cause, and in November 1968 he participated in Operation Hiroshima with Rolf Steiner and Taffy Williams to retake Onitsha from the Nigerian government. It was here where Gusen met his end after being shot in the liver. Roger Falz was a French mercenary who was a Maquis resistance fighter during World War II, and he was awarded the Croix de Guerre at age 20 as a corporal in the French First Army. He was then commissioned in the French Foreign Legion and fought in Indochina, the Suez, and in the Algerian War, where he was accused of torture while effectively dismantling FLN cells. He supported Touchombe and Katanga during the Congo crisis, like many of these other mercenaries, and led Katangi's forces during the siege of Jadotville. Throughout the Congo crisis, Falz had his fair share of conflicts with the UN. He was then deployed to Yemen in 1963 and 64 during the North Yemen Civil War in support of MI6. He was then tasked with organizing mercenaries to go fight in Biafra on behalf of the French government. Other mercenaries included an Italian named Giorgio Norbiato, Rhodesian explosives expert Johnny Erasmus, Scotsman Alexander Alec Gay, Irishman Louis Paddy Mulrooney, Corsican Armand Iranelli, who had been able to enlist in the French Foreign Legion by pretending to be an Italian, a Jamaican bartender who became a mercenary and called himself Johnny Correa, very cool name. Portuguese pilots had also supported the Biafran Air Force by shipping weapons to Biafra from Portugal. Norbiato, Erasmus, and Gay had all previously served as mercenaries fighting for Katanga in the Congo. Mulrooney was noted for his courage under fire, for the utterly ruthless way that he fought the war, as well as a tendency to walk around with a gun in one hand and a bottle of wine in the other. Erasmus was highly skilled in rigging up makeshift explosive devices that hindered the Nigerian advances. Iranelli was known for his steel determination to keep fighting despite continuously losing parts of his body. In Biafra, Iranelli was called Armand the Brave, as he fought despite missing many body parts to fragmentations of bullet shells and other pieces of shrapnel that were lodged in his body. Gay was a veteran of a paratroop regiment and spoke with a thick working-class Glasgow accent, as he always carried around a shotgun, a Madsen submachine gun, and an FN rifle, as he said he was to carry those just in case he had to shoot his way out of the bloody place. How awesome is that? He sounds like an absolute bro. He ultimately left Biafra after being wounded 4 times over the course of 6 days. Did you know about the mercenaries who fought in the Nigerian Civil War? Are there any other mercenaries who fought in this conflict that I forgot to mention or didn't cover enough about in this video? Are there other mercenaries who you would like for me to make videos about? Write in the comments below, and thank you for watching.